Ketamine sort of came about because I don't know if you've heard Michael's song Ketamine from his band Princess Goes to the Butterfly Museum.
Yeah.
We used it at the end of episode 5.
Yes.
We just fell in love with that song. And also small town, what does this woman have? What is Dexter able to use? She has ketamine for her animals. So that's how that came about.
Yeah.
That's sort of a 1-2 punch of, we really want to use this song and vets have this on hand. So that's ketamine.
Yeah.
The research in our heads, it's like Zodiac, right? There have been 15 books in the last 10 years with wildly disparate, following the clues to find out who the Zodiac killer is. So in our heads, we were sort of careful about, I don't know if you see on when she does that search with ketamine and all that, and Miami Metro Homicide ketamine, what comes up is the Serial Killer Collective, which in our heads is one of these serial killer websites where they sort of aggregate all of the research that's been happening. And since, 15 years ago was when the Bay Harbor Butcher was solved, end of season 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Since that time, there has been tons of people that have done all sorts of research and looked into it and found trails of this, and maybe it was this, and even our own Molly Park was talking about how Dokes went off and did some special ops stuff during times when bodies disappeared. So that doesn't quite make sense. And so some people wrote books and people wrote got on websites and did their research, and they saw that there was a sedative, a tranquilizer in the system. This tranquilizer has been underwater. It's been in bags. It's been sort of degrading inside the system. And in real life, atropine, which is M99, and ketamine often get mixed up in coroner reports. In real life, this sort of happens, especially in older bodies. And so the research said it could have, the intention was it's ketamine or atropine or some sort of tranquilizer. And so on that website, it said, ketamine, atropine, whatever. It used those sort of things. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's sort of we grasped onto something that we really liked because of that song, and B, I felt it was okay because it would come up that way in the web search,
Yeah. After all this time, facts can get kind of garbled, can't they? And you get sort of Chinese whispers, and as you say, people coming up with their own theories, and someone else taking that as gospel. Yeah. I mean, it would be a cruel irony indeed if someone's speculation had led to Angela getting that hit and making that connection and suspecting Dexter. Also,
if you look at, in those coroner reports that happened afterwards, because all those bodies got destroyed basically, so they had no actual thing to go from. So they're going from those reports and finding trace, amounts of this sort of thing. So the person's, the research was saying it was ketamine or atropine or some sort of tranquilizer.
Yeah.
So that's why ketamine comes up.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
Hope we can live with it.
Yeah. No.
The song was so good.
It was a surprise when it came on, because obviously we're used to the blood theme.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize at the time it was Michael's band. But a nice nod that you're able to make use of his music.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I saw some people online just getting really angry about the FBI never said this, and I agree, the FBI never did say it. That's why we made it on that Serial Killer Collective website inside the Bay Harbor Butcher section.
Yeah, it wasn't FBI.gov.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because as fans, we're passionate about the show, which is a positive, but it can also make you perhaps want everything to be absolutely 100% bang on perfect in every detail, and I guess
it's impossible.
We'd be remiss as a podcast called Dissecting Dexter if we didn't look into the minutiae.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
I don't blame anybody. It's all good.
It's only because we care.
That's right.
You said that you guys, right.
Absolutely. So it is different. If we would have put, replace M99, take the ketamine out of this season, and imagine that we had the same scenes, but it was called M99, right?
Mhm.
Fans would have been like, "Meh."
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, that's a little convenient that they have that there, right?
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
That's what he used before. But if you Google M99 and ketamine, like in real life, I forget what the word for M99 is. You could probably, like, if somebody's at a computer, you
Yeah.
can
You can look it up
right
in
now.
a second. Yeah, I'll do it right now.
So go ahead. There's a word. It's like, it ends in, like ketamine, ends in "ine." And in toxicology, autopsy
Endorphin.
reports,
Etorphine. There you go.
etorphine and ketamine. And in toxicology reports, they're the two most misdiagnosed drugs. Like, people
great.
constantly confusing the two of them in real life, right?
Mhm.
So in our story, when Angela Googles, she's just putting pieces together. Remember the information she has. She's like Bay Harbor Butcher, Miami, the wheel marks, and now ketamine. So she puts in, she Googles ketamine and Bay Harbor Butcher or Miami homicide. I forget what it.
Right.
But whatever she put up, the answer was not the Bay Harbor Butcher just used ketamine. That's not what the answer was. That would have been an oversight.
Right.
Read, blow up the screen, right? What it is when you Google something and you put in two words like Miami homicide and ketamine, it's going to give you all the things where those two words show up.
Right. The relevant results in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the Bay Harbor Butcher, in one of the stories, and I think we even went out of our way to say, like, what she looks at is the equivalent of like a fan site. It's people who are sleuthing and trying to figure out that it was a big mystery. So what she sees in the Google search is that there are people who could have been ketamine. It could have been ketamine in their system.
Mhm.
It wasn't conclusive.
Right.
Conclusive evidence for her is going to be Batista, right? When at the end, she's like, he's going to come up here, and he's like, I'm going to bring everything I have, and they're going to put it all together. This was just another thing, like, this is just too close.
Right.
So, yeah, look, could we have called it M99? Sure.
Yeah.
I think that would have been just like a little eye rolling,
Totally agree.
Yep.
So I don't mind the debate. I just, it's like when people just jump to, they fucked up, they're stupid. Like, and then you can't get online and start defending yourself, because it's just,
it'll just go on forever. It's talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I can sleep at night. Like when it came up, I was like, okay, they'll figure it out. People, and if anyone really cares, when we talk about it, it'll come out, and then they either understand it or they don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. But as I said in the beginning of this interview, there is a reason for everything, and we did think about everything. So whether or not our explanations kind of satisfy people, I can't speak to that, but I can say with conviction that there's a reason why things happened the way they did.
Just a quick aside about Batista here, though. He was wearing a wedding ring in that scene with Angela, and on the podcast we called him out for seeming to hit on her. You confirmed on social media that him wearing the ring was intentional, so we wondered if either he's remarried or perhaps more likely it's the one from LaGuerta. Are you able to reveal the answer?
Yeah, no, he remarried. In our, we at one point we'd had a whole scene with he and his family, and when she called, we were going to have a whole thing, and timing and everything else, just, production got in the way of that. But yeah, in our heads, he's happily married to Masuda. Okay. No, I'm kidding. No, he's happily married, and but he's still, he's still Batista.
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah.
Yeah. He still likes the ladies.
He's a smooth operator, the old dog.
Yeah.
Harrison confesses to Dexter about what he did to Ethan. Dexter gives a little nod, almost smiling, recognizing the urge to commit violence at that age. For him, it must validate his decision to tell him about the Dark Passenger. But was this the first time that Harrison committed a calculated act of violence on someone? Because another theory that got talked about early in the season, as you may have heard, was that Harrison might have killed Hannah. Now, I'm not sure I still see that as being possible now, but it was fun to talk about.
Yeah.
but was
yeah,
that...
I was surprised by that one. He had hurt people before, but never killed anybody for sure. And he, he genuinely loved Hannah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Hannah kept the truth of all of this from, he didn't know that Hannah was a poisoner. He didn't know any of that stuff.
Right. So in the room, you considered Hannah to have taken genuinely good care of him. Yeah.
Yeah. Which made it all the more tragic when she passed away and he just got shoved into the welfare system.
It's like losing a third parent. Lost a third parent there.
Yeah.
Great moment when it does come, right? Like the all right, I'm on board. Almost.
And then he kisses him, it's like
the kiss on the forehead. Yes.
Yeah. But that's where Dexter tells another sort of, an outwardly unreliable narrator moment when he says to Harrison, I killed Wiggles and I took care of Trinity for what he did to your mother. Mm-hmm.
Right. It's
which isn't right because his mother he didn't know. But we do, we tell these stories to ourselves, and then, or we tell stories to other people to help them come over to our side.
Yeah.
He can't say I killed Trinity and then and then came home and found out you
can't
were dead.
explain it, right?
Yeah. He flipped this narrative in order to win his son over, which is very human.
Sure, of course.
We're always writing that line of like Dexter the psychopath and Dexter the human, and I don't know.
No, it's
I love that moment. Michael even in that moment was just like, that's not what really happened. I was like, I know, right? Like, it's like you're winning over your son. He's like, oh yeah, that's great. Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
No, that
I talk about being on set, Clyde, on that scene when Dexter kills Logan. Because that was a big discussion in the room of like, oh man, wow, is this a lot? Is this too much?
Yeah.
Is this good? Is this,
Well, Michael was just great about it. I mean, he was so intense saying, stop struggling. I don't want to hurt you. This is inevitable. I've got you in a position that you can't get out of. One of the struggles that we had was that in some of the early edits, it looked like Logan shot his gun and then Dexter broke his neck because he shot the gun. But as written, and where we finally got, actually with sound effects, was that as written, Logan shoots the gun and Dexter, in ducking away, breaks Logan's neck by accident. Yeah. But it looked like Dexter was doing it in response to that. And then we tried everything in the world visually, and then I said, how about if you put the sound effect right where the gunshot is? The sound effect of the neck breaking. And suddenly, or maybe it was Perry's idea, or Katie's idea, I don't remember. Katie Ennis, the editor. But it worked. And it absolved Dexter in a way. It was an accident.
Yeah. I like his response, just like, man, I didn't want to do that. Like you dropped milk. Oh, man. I've gotten more upset at like dropping a gallon of milk than Dexter did at that moment.
Because in this relationship with Harrison, we start to humanize Dexter, but then at his core, something you were both so vigilant about throughout this process is like he's a sociopath. And, at the end of the day, if this is the only way for him to survive, this is what he'll do.
Well, that's an interesting point. When Harrison has the gun pointed at Dexter, and again, that's Chekhov's gun. It's classic. And he says, take off the safety just the way I showed you. Shoot me here. And then as Harrison is girding his own loins to get this going, Dexter's voiceover comes up and says, I've never felt love before, but now I do. And it's for my own son and for what he's about to do. And then Harrison pulls the trigger and Dexter says, you did good. He forgives him. And then Deb is there. And she had the idea of pulling away from Dexter and Jennifer Carpenter, which was really powerful. And then another thing that we talked about a lot with Marcos and you was, okay, we're going to kill an iconic figure. And how does he die? What does it look like? What position is his body in? It's so tempting to have him splayed out on the ice like Christ, or to have him like this with blood coming down and he's an angel with wings. And then Michael had the idea of awkwardly stumbling backward and kind of crossing one knee over one thigh, or whatever the ultimate thing was. And it just looked like that he had been separated from how his body works and just collapsed. And because again, we shot a lot of shit with him lying on the ground dead. And so we had
finally
to get
got
it right.
to see what it was like to lay down during an entire scene. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Going back to that I've never truly felt love before line. I remember that like moved us when you guys when you came up with that in the room, Clyde. That whole idea, and it's interesting because it's like what Dexter's saying there is it could be taken lots of different ways, which is quite wonderful, I think. But that Dexter true love is sacrificial.
Well, it's also the last line of the script. You're right. First of all, it is a culmination of a very difficult journey for Dexter. I think Dexter would have chosen to be anybody else other than who he was if he had a choice. Yeah. And the last line of the letter that he's reading, of the voiceover, is, let me die so that my son can live. Yep. That is the biggest sacrifice there is.
Yep.
And
Dexter's never been able to do that before, ever.
No, you're right. You're right. And just, whatever writing seminar this is, I could not have written that if I were not a father. We change as writers as we experience more and more life. I wrote plenty of husband and wife scenes before I was married that had nothing to do with what we're doing now.
Clyde, you and I had very different sort of visions of what you did good. And that's what sort of why you are such a good sort of showrunner, that you can allow many thoughts to exist within a thought, which is great writing and great storytelling and all that sort of stuff. But like for me, you did good. There's a part of that to sort of like, my son is following the code in the right way. Mm-hmm. And it can mean both of these things. Yeah.
And you did the right thing.
Yeah.
You were faced with an impossible choice and you made the right choice.
Yeah.
And you are absolved. You did the right thing. You had my permission. I urged you to do it. You were in an impossible position. Dexter says it's the only way out, and Harrison says, for both of us.
Yeah.
My favorite line in that sequence, when Dexter says, I can be a better father with your help. And Harrison says, I'm not your fucking caretaker. That gets me every time.
Yeah, it's breaking down Dexter's like pure selfish way of looking at the world. Getting him to that point where he's able to say, I've never felt true love until this moment, being sacrificial, giving up something, because Dexter just was incapable. Even with Deb, he was like, no, kill everybody else, but let us do our thing. There was no sacrifice even with Deb. The final letter, like, because we were sort of struggling. It's like, wow, how do you end a show without hearing Dexter?
Yes.
That was just a great pitch in the room. Was it Mark, Alex? Was it you guys? I forget.
It was Mark. I think we were struggling about how we could still hear him. And I remember, because it was before we got on with the room, and Mark's like, don't we still have the letter? And I was like, oh my God, you have to say that. That would be such a great way to end the show. I'm Mark's hype woman.
If anybody needs a speech or a letter or an emotional sort of thing written for them, you're the go-to guy. So, Clyde, talk about writing that letter. This farewell.
Mark and Alice contributed to that letter, first of all, and then once I had that, then I knew the beats of what I wanted to have, what I wanted him to be narrating. Once again, it's a reprise of going through town, seeing all the characters again, seeing the town, going by his high school where he was actually happy, going by the diner where he worked, going by everything that was normal. That's another line that I love in the rifle scene, which is I forgot what it was. I don't want to be right. I just want to be normal. Yeah, I don't want to be right. That's exactly it. I just want to be normal. He was so hungry for normalcy, and then it's taken from him. And originally, what people don't know is we were originally, and in fact, got pretty far down the line, where as he's driving out of town, a deer appears on the side of the road and is running with him and runs past the highway sign leading him to the on-ramp. And then we figured, well, it's too much. We don't need it. And also with Showtime's influence. It's too much. We don't need it. Let's just keep this let's simplify this journey and make it as focused as possible. And I'm so glad that we did that.
Yeah, no, it's an emotional drive, an emotional letter. And then Harrison drives off. There's even almost, there's a lot of emotion as he's driving through and seeing all these places and thinking through his father's final message to him. And then with that beautiful song, I mean, there's two great songs.
Oh, the National, yeah.
Yeah, the National at the end just really, I think that was like a Marcos wanted that from the very beginning.
Yeah, I had tried a couple of other songs, Alexi Murdoch and Charlie Musselwhite and a bunch of different things, and Marcos was absolutely right with that song.
Yeah, it fits that voice, the lyric, everything. It touches on it without informing it. Like it's really just a beautiful sequence. And then there's just like a slight bit of hope at that end as we are on Harrison and we cut to black. Like there's something else out there. He's got a pretty good truck. He's got $30,000 from Kurt sitting in a yellow envelope and some money from Angela. He's gonna have a lot to deal with.
The ending was, I think, surprising and I think inevitable. If you play this show, the season backwards, everything makes sense. It's like The Usual Suspects. You get all these surprises at the end, and you play it backward, and it's all there.
Yep. Yeah, it's the season where Dexter learns that he's the villain.
Yes.
And in some ways, the viewers too.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it was all guiding us toward that realization for himself. That moment. I mean, I felt like we had something special when Harrison did that callback from the very first episode and said, "Open your eyes and look at what you've done."
Right. Very first episode of the pilot of the very first season. Yes.
That's right. Yeah, killing the pedophile. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And it's a serial killer show with a sense of humor, but he's a psychopath, and you don't get to kill people. And he needed to pay the societal price for it. We needed to have the ultimate closure. And we knew that all season long. It's just how we got there that was important. There's the old saw about, for any man, whether you're a completely normal person or a fucked up person, that you need to kill your father in order to move on in life. Right. And I had, as you Scott know, had a terrible childhood and a terrible father whom I've killed many times in my novels and in screenplays and teleplays and therapy. So it was natural to do. As I've said to you before, I wrote the script with a pen filled with blood. It's why it's very moving. It's very emotional. I was just an hour ago wiping tears away watching the show again.
Yeah.
Because, of course, at the end, I mean, you're listening to that National song, which is so gut-wrenching at the very end, and you're just left feeling like, oh, no, like, it's over. I mean, Dex is gone. Michael C.L. could always come back, like, in a Deb sense, if there was a reboot or a
Well, that won't happen. I can put that to bed right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because the Michael C. Hall interview I read, he was like, if anything, this was the closure he needed for people to stop kind of asking him over.
Yeah,
and over
no, it's done. I first of all, I just want to say to everyone, to your peeps who listen, I came onto this thing not knowing what your opinions would be of the finale. You know, and on the tail end of a lot of backlash. So part of me was like, look, whatever it is they feel, I'm going to listen and I'm going to, you know, absorb it. And you have every right to, if you had turned around and said like the worst, man, how could you do that? You know, then we'd have, I hopefully a constructive debate about it. But I appreciate that you guys feel the way you do, because that was the intention. It's sad. And as you said, Jim, you know, nobody wants Dexter to die. I didn't want Dexter to die. I think the only person who really wanted to put Dexter down was Michael.
Yeah.
And he has lived these 10 years since the finale with this thing where it doesn't feel resolved. I'm not happy. There's no other reason to come back, right?
Right.
And I mean, honestly, it was Clyde called me, and Michael and Clyde called me in the same day separately to ask me to do the show. And when Clyde called me, my heart raced, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" I'd be honored. First of all, thank you for asking me. They could have asked anyone, and I would be honored. And the first was like, "How does Michael feel?" And he was, Clyde said, "Michael wants this. He's excited." And then Michael called me, and I could hear in his voice, he's like, he needed it. It's like he finally got the story delivered to him that he felt comfortable with.